good evening, and welcome to the Positional Sports Talk Show, Post, live streaming on Facebook Live and from our Positional Sports Talk Show YouTube channel. We are a sports talk show made for the fans, from the perspective of fans, presented by us lifelong sports fans. We'll provide our opinions and positions on the hottest topics in sports. My name is Big Reg. I'm joined this evening by my partners in crime. We got my man J3 in the building. What's up, brother?
What's up?
We got the professor in the building. How you feeling this evening, professor?
I'm doing well. Praise the Lord, fellas. Let's have a great show.
All right. We got Johnny in the building on time and no technical difficulties this week. What's up, Johnny?
I'm feeling pretty good. No technical difficulties. My Wi-Fi is stronger than ever. I got a chance to put up a few shots at a basketball court. I went 0 for 3. I'm still happy. Good afternoon. Yes.
And last but not least, my partner, Big Ed. What's going on, Ed? How you feeling this evening, brother?
I'm great, fellas. Lucky to be here. Glad you guys are healthy. Let's get it on.
Amen.
Let's get it on.
Yeah.
This evening, we will discuss the NCAA conference decisions regarding college football and fall sports. We'll also touch, we can't get away from it, COVID-19 and its effects on sports. We got to talk about the decision of the Washington's football team's name change. And my man pulled off Fight Island, UFC 251.
I told y'all, man, stop
Plus
playing
other
with
topics that caught our attention. And of course, we always end all our shows with our final post of the evening. So we appreciate you for tuning in. Sit back and relax and enjoy Post on the Positional Talk Sports Talk Show channel. All right, fellas. They did it again. The Ivy League led the way. Day after we did last week's show on Wednesday, the Ivy League announced not only were they just canceling football, they canceled all sports for the fall semester
Shut it
and
down.
will reevaluate later in the winter if they'll even have winter or spring sports. So
Yay.
that just started a big domino. 2 days later, you had the ACC announce that they were going to delay the start of all their fall sports to September 1st at the very earliest, but that they would relook at things by the end of July, early August, and make decisions. And then that was topped by the Big Ten the next day saying, we're going to play football, so they say, but it's going to be a conference-only season, eliminating some huge interconference matchups. And then the Pac-12 followed them 2 days later. So, fall sports, we've been saying it off and on consistently. We didn't see how they were going to do college sports at all. But what did you guys think about the announcements between last week's show and tonight's show?
TV timeout. Please explain something to me. How do you got these colleges going on and canceling games, but yet you have the Secretary of Department of Education talking about schools got to be in session for these kids to go to school? Please help me understand. Did I miss something? Because if the kids are not in school, right? So listen to me now. If the kids are not in school, that means they can't play football. So if they're not playing football, why are they going to school? Help me understand.
J3,
Go ahead, Ed. Handle that.
J3. You're killing me right now, J3. You talking about school and college football. College football has nothing to do with school except the logo on the jerseys. College football is a business that funds these schools. So, of course, you're going to have football. They're just going to try to figure out a way to hide the students.
But are you sure about that?
Yeah, you're talking about amateur / professional football. You're not really talking about amateur football. It's big business. And until that avenue is exhausted, this is what you're going to have. We're not going to have sport. We're not going to have college football. I'm just putting that out right now. We're not going to have college football this year because they've painted themselves in a corner. But I'll sit back and we'll get to that in a minute.
J3, you're not gonna have me going on a political tangent, so I'm gonna just keep it in the lane because you mentioned somebody that is not near and dear to my heart. But let me just answer to the question. I think that the right decision, because we all agree that the safety of these young men and women should be paramount. But we all know that it's about that bottom dollar. So even though some of the conferences are, saying we're going to have an all-conference schedule, right? They still trying to work out a way where they can still make that money, get the athletes on campus. Like Ed says, they're going to be storing them under the mattresses, put them in the headboards. They're going to find a way to get these young men for football into these facilities so they can get them on the field, because these ADs and these coaches, they worried about their bottom lines, and college presidents as well. So we should be safe. I'm not going to touch that lady you talked about because I got a lot to say, but this not the show for it. But I think we're going to end up seeing some form of college football this year.
I was listening to satellite radio earlier today, and it was a very wise song that came across. And during the song, the lyric, the sentence was said that for the love of money, we would kill our own brother. These people don't care about us. They don't care about those. They're going to put. And the biggest issue, the crossroad I think you run into is as much pressure as we put on the governing bodies to make sure they make the best decision. These kids and a lot of these families aren't helping. I think I mentioned last week that if you send a player home, he's going to pass 30 or 40 guys headed to the stadium to check in. So that's the biggest issue right there, in my opinion.
I feel you. So can we get back to the show and off the detour? I'm not going to touch it. If I touch it, this ain't going to be a sports show anymore. So
I'm just saying, man. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense.
I agree totally with you, but that's a whole different kettle of fish. So was anybody shocked or surprised by the number of announcements that were made last week?
Nope.
No, not at all.
Nope.
Well, I wasn't shocked. Collectively we couldn't have been shocked that the Ivy League led the way, because in the spring they led the way with canceling their spring sports,
basketball tournament.
Basketball.
Yeah. So they led the way with that. And so for them to lead the way in the fall, early summer now, and they're making this announcement already, we shouldn't have been surprised, because the financial incentives isn't there as far as the Ivy League is concerned. But as far as the Power 5 conferences, was I surprised that I guess you had the Big Ten announced, you had the Pac-12 announced, and I'm sure other conferences are just laying in wait to see how this all plays out. But was I surprised? No, because they're doing it in incremental steps. At first they're announcing, okay, we're just going to go to league only, as if they can control the environment or create some mythical bubble when you're flying or being bused to different cities. It's not going to work. But they have to do their due diligence because of the money involved. So, to cancel right now and have a miracle present itself, that's just, it's just not, it doesn't seem realistic. And never forget this, because Dr. Fauci, who's been screaming this for months, these ADs, these presidents, these high-powered coaches and what have you, they're not going to decide if college football is played this year. It's going to be the virus. The virus will dictate. The virus is going to dictate everything. And to this point, we don't know anything. Even the health experts can't predict what's going to happen. So, and those people are ultimately going to decide if these sports are played this fall.
Now, are we going to need the majority of the teams to come down with COVID for them to make a stop? Because clearly what we've seen thus far is not enough. So the question, that's the question. How much more do they need to see? How much more does it need to be unsafe for them to actually turn around and go in a different direction? Because it's hard to see for me.
I think a player is going to have to be hooked up to a ventilator for it to come to a screeching halt.
Lord have mercy.
You think that'll be enough?
It will be
Stop
enough.
millions?
It will be enough.
You've already seen multiple programs, high-profile programs, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State. I just heard the Terps had to shut down that facility. Alabama. Almost all of them who've been in their facilities now have had to shut them down, bring in people to clean them out, keep people away. So they can't even do weightlifting and training. They ain't even started hitting. So,
the shock for me would be if they did follow suit in the last week with schools like Morehouse College and they shut the whole thing down. And the other shock would have been actually Notre Dame joining a conference, but they still tried to hold on to their independent status while, scheduling those ACC games. But we'll see.
Notre Dame is in discussions with the ACC to pick up a couple of more, 2 or 3 more games, because they've already. Notre Dame's an ACC school in everything but football.
Yeah.
They're playing 5 ACC teams in football already. So for them to pick up another 3-4 games in the ACC is real easy, and it benefits the ACC to have a big-time football power play them, so that Clemson is just not the only one.
Right.
So I think if the ACC plays, Notre Dame will play with the ACC. So what did y'all think about the Patriot League announcing that they were canceling fall sports this year, with the one exception, and they gave an exception, that if Army, Navy decided they wanted to continue to have their game, that they would let them play their game this year?
Go Army.
Well, technically, it would
Navy.
Technically, that would mean that as we stand, I believe Army is the independent of the group, and Navy is connected to the Patriot League. Is that? Am I getting that right? So,
I believe that's right.
Yeah. So if that's the case, Army, we don't know what their schedule would look like being an independent. We don't know how many games that they would ultimately get canceled. We're also playing a what if. I'm just playing a what if right now. And then Navy, they would actually only play one game the entire year, or both teams would only play one game the entire year.
They got
both athletic directors had conferences today and said that if they could only play one game, they wanted to make sure that the Army-Navy game was still played.
Okay.
Tradition.
Would they have fans in the stands for that?
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it.
You do have some NFL teams that are talking about that they're going to allow like 15% attendance and socially distance them.
Yeah, they want their sweet box money too.
Well, ain't nobody in the suite socially distancing. You can believe that. They pinning all that money.
Right.
I think as far as the Army Navy game, I want to say it's a little different as opposed to the rest of college football. Being an academy, I think it presents some certain differences. Even though they're in college, technically they're starting their careers already. They're training for their careers. I guess major college football is too, but everything is almost a certainty as long as they do what they need to do as far as the classroom is concerned and their other obligations. I think it's a certainty that they're going to be in the military. They're going to have a job when they graduate. So I think that's a little different as far as the the decision to play. And also, I believe the Army-Navy game is late in the season. Usually, what is that, November or December? Whose military knows that?
It's usually the first week of December.
Okay. So we don't know what the virus is going to, again, all this is speculation, but we don't know where we're going to be at as far as the virus is concerned by then. Maybe we might be far enough along where some miracle will happen and we may have a vaccine by then, perhaps.
It's going to disappear.
It's not going to disappear.
Man, I hope they don't think they any different from the rest of the nation.
Why are you starting trouble
on that ship?
It's just going to disappear.
Man.
Why are you
Did y'all
starting
just
trouble?
boot Johnny off? Oh
no.
But anyway, I think the game probably, if any game will be played, it's going to be that game. To answer your question, I think it's going to be that game. But right now, again, we don't know.
I hear you. So, just a quick yes or no answer. College football this season?
No.
Yes.
What, on a video game?
So we got one yes.
He didn't answer the other question. He ain't asked the other question. Will it start? Yeah.
Will it finish?
Probably
Yeah.
not. That's
Okay.
that's another. Yeah.
So you think the SEC is going to hold out and try to play? Because that's the only league I can see really pushing it. The SEC, I don't even know if the Big Ten's got enough stick-to-itness to press the issue. Down the SEC, and for anybody who hasn't attended a live SEC game, it's different. You can put 100,000 people in the big house in Michigan. You can go to the Horseshoe, Ohio State. You can go to Notre Dame until you sit in Death Valley at night, or go to Alabama and Tuscaloosa with 103,000 of your personal friends. It's different. Just saying.
Yeah.
But it's also, when you talk about the SEC, Big Reg, you're talking about the southeastern United States. And when you're talking about the southeastern United States, if you look at some of the hot spots and where the virus is up in the uptick right now,
it's all
and then you look at the politics involved in all this, and we're not going to mention that. I'm just pointing it out. It's there. It's the elephant in the room. Yeah,
Yep.
It's the elephant in the room. The SEC probably will be the last to announce any major decisions as far as either a cancellation or a conference only schedule. But yeah, I think you have to look at the geographics of where it's located.
All you gotta do is turn on CNN and look at the map that they show every 5 minutes.
Yeah, right. Every 5 minutes.
Is red.
Yeah,
means
deep
it's
red.
I'm trying to stay in the middle. I'm trying to drive the bit. Yeah.
You do that, and I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you what I'm watching on TV. Red. How about that?
Well, since we're talking about red, we
So
might as
channel
well
4,
keep.
5, 7, and 9.
Right.
I hear you. We might as well keep this COVID conversation going on and talk about how it's affecting some of the other sports. The NBA, they're in the bubble. Team started reporting last week.
Dropping out like flies.
People are checking in. For the most part, everybody's there. But yesterday we got our first big news when Russell Westbrook, who did not report with the team with Houston to the bubble, announced that he had tested positive for COVID-19. James Harden also didn't report. We haven't heard anything about James, but James isn't in the bubble. I'm not going to speculate any further, but that's a little worrisome. Kawhi Leonard arrived late last night after handling some personal family business, but supposedly he's tested negative and is in his quarantine, so he should be ready to go. But the biggest issue, the bubble has been breached already.
And we said that. We said that was gonna happen. We said it. We knew it was gonna happen.
You had two players that people probably have never heard of unless you die hard for these teams. Sacramento Kings center Richaun Holmes, who believed a post that was put out saying that you could go get delivery from Postmates. All you had to do is go to the entry and pick it up yourself. Went to get some food, takeout, as now it's quarantined for 10 days.
Think, young brother, think.
And then the Houston
He was
Rockets.
listening to.
Go ahead, Johnny. What was you gonna say?
No, I was just about to co-sign your point. Of all people to listen to, he was listening to Kelly Oubre.
Yeah. we all remember Kelly Oubre from his Wizards days. Yeah. I think Kelly Oubre was clowning people trying to get some Bama's to go off campus, see who would listen.
And they did.
And then the Rockets, Bruno Caboclo, I've never even heard of him.
Yeah.
He just decided to come. He just going through the initial test and decided that he was going to just go down the hall real quick and grab something from the vending machine, which is a violation of the rules. And now he has to be quarantined for 10 days. And don't let me start about that IG model who's posting all over social media that she got invited to the bubble. So
I want to start on that. You let me.
Go ahead, get into it.
So the thing is, and I hate to quote this man or use this as a source, but Stephen A. Smith predicted this. Stephen A. said, you're going to quarantine these. Well, that he ain't the only one, but you're going to quarantine these guys for what, 3 months? And he said it's not going to be 3 weeks. He said because the girlfriends and the wives, they're not going to go that long without being around them. And we haven't even had barely a day or a week of being in a quarantine, and now you're getting invites through random IG models, and that's just the one that we heard of. We're not talking about the discreet ones. So you got young men in their 20s, 30s that have time, opportunity, and money. They're not going to be holed up with a bunch of dudes for 3 months. It's not going to work. It's not a realistic expectation. So
we said that from the get-go.
Yeah,
we knew that this was going to happen. Yeah. So it should be no surprise to anyone because we knew it was going to happen.
So the $1 billion bubble isn't going to work, huh?
Kids who fresh coming off of quarantine.
No,
not at all. Not at all. And these are kids that are fresh coming off of quarantine. They're now finally able to kind of stretch their get back to life as normal. How you gonna get the 22-year-old to do it? But since we brought up his name, I do want to ask one question because it completely threw me off when I heard about the situation. I understand are still going
breaking.
Mm-hmm.
You're breaking up, Johnny.
Johnny, repeat that.
So apparently the LA Clippers are still trying to administer some load management with Kawhi Leonard. So now I want to look at his case. What is going on with my? Because he just had 3.5, 4 months to sit down. And
you're breaking up, but let me get the gist to your point because you continue to break up, partner. I don't know if it's the headphones or something, but I heard the same story that Kawhi Leonard has told people that he's not going to, even though he's supposed to be fully healthy, that he's still going to load manage some, especially in the first 8 games that they're playing back, because seeding isn't really going to matter anymore. If you think about it, everybody's playing at the same venue at the same time. So whether you 1 or 8, unless you're
Right.
trying to avoid a team, seeding doesn't matter because there's no home court advantage. So Kawhi's like,
What is his injury?
he got bad knees.
These have to be the worst knees in the world. He's just been off 3 to 4 months. You're doing some light practicing, and you already can't get through the first 8 games. It make me look like his career is not going to quite pan out the way it should, the way you think it would. Like, what exactly is going on with his body? It has to be beyond bad knees. What type of bad knees are we talking about? Where he doesn't wear knee braces or anything like that? Tendonitis to the 10th power? How do you lock him into a long-term contract? He just got 3-4 month break. Go ahead, my bad, Ed. Go ahead.
I think Kawhi, to answer your question, I think Kawhi is what we call a hired gun. He's a specialist. He comes in when he's needed, and when he's not needed, like during these little frivolous 8 games, they shouldn't even be having. Yeah, they shouldn't. But anyway, he'll be like, look, I'll be there when I need to be there when it counts. Until then, I got a bad knee, because.
Who that sound like? Who that sound like? That remind you of Robert Ory back in the day? The only time you see him on his big games?
Yeah, but
a little different though.
A little different.
Ory was a support player. Kawhi, the man, come playoff time.
Understand, but I'm just saying, when it comes to big shots, who you gonna get the ball to? Robert Ory.
Yeah.
Can you demand max money from Kawhi's position?
He got it. Not only did he get max money, he got another player on another team to get traded because he wanted to. I mean, let's all be real. Kawhi the biggest G in the NBA right now.
Oh, yeah,
everybody thinks it's LeBron. Kawhi's the biggest G in the NBA right now.
Agreed.
Well, they think it's LeBron because LeBron is out there.
He's still the face.
Yeah, LeBron's out there. Kawhi's like, you go ahead. I don't need the spotlight. I just need them rings. He goes about his business quietly. That's why, and he don't seek endorsements. But I do believe he finally has a shoe contract, but with New Balance. So, but he doesn't seek that spotlight, and then he
man.
Sound
He gonna need every bit of them knees to beat LeBron, though. He
sound like Timmy Duncan, doesn't it?
I'm not quite sold on Kawhi just yet. That championship he won last year with Clay going down, I think KD went down.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of he was playing a depleted Golden State Warriors with a
Toronto
team that was doing well enough without him.
Wow.
Come on now. Let's not have revisionary history. The Toronto Raptors couldn't get past the second round of the playoffs with the team they had before. They changed one player. Not only did they make the finals, they end up winning it. And I'll give you the injuries, but you're talking about against a mega team. You look at that team Toronto has, other than Kawhi, there's no big-time players. They got a bunch of very good role players that know their role, but Kawhi put them over the top from a team that couldn't get past the second round.
Without a doubt.
In the playoffs, he did.
Van Vliet won that championship.
Oh, my goodness.
Van Vliet won that joint. Without his big shot, they won.
Oh, my goodness.
Because if those other guys are playing, they don't win that championship. If those other guys are not playing, Golden State went 4 in a row.
You can't sleep on some. What's the power forward? Salik.
Siakam.
Siakam was a monster, huh?
He can play some ball, but he's not. He wasn't. I don't think he was absolutely ready at that time. They took advantage of a depleted, just like the Cavaliers lost when LeBron and them lost a couple of years back when Kyrie and my man went down. The starting power forward at the time.
Kevin Love.
I agree with you, but injuries are part of the game, partner. You can say that. You can say that about the year the Warriors didn't win and Cleveland did win.
Right.
When Draymond got kicked out of the game,
which was wrong.
And then the next game he came back, he played like a zombie for 3/4 of the game. He gave them 2 games. So, I mean, stuff happens. You got to work with it.
Of course, injuries are part of the game.
I hear you. I
I
hear you.
respect that injuries are a part of the game, but when you say he's right behind maybe LeBron and KD, he's that guy up. That doesn't really make sense to me. That's where I get lost at. It's not enough. That championship didn't solidify his space in my opinion.
Whoa.
But
That's
just
why we all got our own
Yeah,
separate positions out
That's
here.
true. That's true.
I don't quite
Positions on Sports Talk.
Yeah.
Right.
I ain't
I
mad
love you,
at
Johnny,
you for your
but
position.
I ain't mad at you, but ooh.
As Ed said, that man quietly got another man traded to the team he wanted to go to, and you never heard a word about it till it was done.
Mm-hmm.
Not just any
'cause
player,
they were silent
an
about it.
all-star
Paul George-
player that had just got an extension.
That was a
Paul
Boston
George
move.
wanted that. He wanted that spot. He wanted that spot as much as Kawhi wanted him out there. It wasn't all Kawhi's doing. Kawhi ain't got that pull just yet.
Well, he could have went to LA.
If
He didn't go to
anything,
he didn't go to the
needed
Lakers.
Paul George to go over there because he was going to sit out 40 games.
I hear you.
It's just as
I
much
hear you.
as it was an investment for the Clippers to bring him over because he's going to sit out 40 plus games.
I hear you. I hear you. All right, my last question on the NBA before we move to the next sports league. They're going to play. It's obvious they're going to play. Will they finish and crown a champion?
Yeah, with depleted rosters. They will, though. Yeah.
That sounds like an asterisk for Professor
It's-
J.
And I second that emotion. Definitely an
They
asterisk.
getting the G League players ready. They like, y'all be ready because we going to call y'all up. They going to finish the season. They going to crown the champion.
That's just crazy. That's just crazy.
So if we put an asterisk on this one, but we don't put an asterisk on the one last year.
You got to let that go, Johnny. You got to let that go, Johnny.
Say hello to the bad guy. It's a fair question. Why would there be an asterisk on this season?
Because the pandemic, the pandemic has changed the history and the course of this particular year. It's not, you can't compare this year to any other year that at least we've experienced. So
Right.
the asterisk is well deserved. It should be on it because last season or no other season was interrupted like this. It wasn't interrupted because of one player injury. It was interrupted because of a worldwide pandemic.
Mhm.
So
And
that's
simply
different.
put, you're not gonna get everybody's best. You just not. You're gonna have
Why
players
not?
that get
Why
sick
not?
and
Why
they're gonna be
not?
out in and out the lineup, and you just not gonna get everybody's best. I'm telling you.
The professional players playing basketball. They're playing basketball. And they've been moving
Even the ones that barely get called up.
They're moving to a dorm-like setting. That's on
Nah, they ain't in
campus,
dorms.
and
They
all
in
gotta
luxury
do is go
hotels.
downstairs. They probably may be a little bit more used to luxury hotels now, but these guys are playing basketball. They playing basketball. It shouldn't be hard to get back to your level, get back into a flow, and more importantly, I think they have the ability to have more of a intimate relationships with one another because they're forced to stay in this little bubble together. I think you're going to get some great basketball out of this situation, and I knocked the asterisk. I think this is going to be a tougher competition than most people expected. I think it'd be tougher to win the championship now.
Man,
What?
if you see
Two players.
Caruso hoisting the trophy instead of LeBron, you gonna tell me it ain't no asterisk on there? Come
But
on,
that
man.
proves my point. That proves my point, though. That proves my point.
No,
I'm not
it
saying the
doesn't.
players- I'm not saying the players not playing doesn't bring about an asterisk. It definitely does. But if it brings about an asterisk now, then why didn't it bring about one last year? If y'all saying Kawhi won that clean and clear,
Injuries are part of the game, not a pandemic. A
y'all mean to tell me
pandemic.
if Michael Jordan would have got hurt, him and Pippen would have fell off, and one of them other teams win a championship, y'all not putting an asterisk by that?
Well, you figure that's how Houston won 2 games. I mean,
Well,
that's how
right.
Houston won 2 championships because Jordan
Yeah.
wasn't playing those 2 years. And as
people
soon
look
as
at
he
him
came
funny.
back, huh?
And
You're
Say
right.
that
People
again?
look at him
a little
funny.
from time to time.
I don't.
Yeah.
They
I
changed it.
definitely do.
Okay, all right.
Nah, I don't agree with that, Johnny, because Houston won those games. They won those championships back to back. They did what they were supposed to get back in the playoffs and win it back to back. Not too many teams can do that. So you can't put no asterisk by them because Jordan didn't play. That's totally different.
I
You don't
hear
agree?
I hear you.
If you
I don't-
remove the top players from teams, especially in that last game, that made a big difference. I knew early on that Toronto probably had that sold up. That NBA championship was not exciting for me because I knew that wasn't the real product to me. It wasn't the
feel you.
real product to me. So
I feel you. I feel you.
I don't know what it is. I
As
may
far
be wrong, and that's cool.
as far as my opinion, I think they will attempt to finish this. And I don't even want to put this out there. Let me just put it this way. If a major name comes down with the virus in the actual playoffs, they're going to shut everything down again.
Mm-hmm.
Only if it's LeBron.
There's a couple of other ones out there that do
Giannis.
that.
Yeah.
Couple others out there, but if a major name comes, there's gonna be issues. Speaking about issues, what do y'all think about the Major League Baseball? I mean, first they argue about money when they're gonna start. They finally get a plan to start, and these fools can't even get testing right.
And this is why, because of what's happening in baseball, this is why none of these other experiments are going to be successful. Because, well, at least leagues that are not in the bubble. Maybe the NBA stands a chance. Maybe the NHL stands a chance because they're in these so-called bubbles. But if you have like the NFL, so NFL and well, let's say college football, flying to all these different cities, and they can't even get test results on time, if they can get test results at all, that's going to be a problem. And with the rise in the virus and the stress on these health facilities, not only the hospitals, but you have the labs, all these things are stressed out, and you have the availability of test kits. All these things are stressed out to a point where it's just going to be overwhelming on the system. And it's not going to be up to the commissioners of the NBA or Major League Baseball or whatever other sports league you want to mention. Again, it's going to be these county officials, these governors. I can't say any other higher official, but yeah. But these people are going to actually going to decide, what is, if these leagues or can finish their seasons. That's what's going to decide it.
And have you noticed or heard the news that there's already another shortage on PPE and viable testing kits? So you got to factor that in as well. As Joe said earlier, as the majority of the country is going dark red with all these spikes in cases, they're using up any surplus that we had over the last month or so. So now you're talking about players going to get tested every day or 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, where they going to get it? You already see the false positives and the negatives and stuff. Some of these tests aren't even viable. So this is going to be a mess, y'all. It's going to be a mess.
And then on top of that, they got it in Florida. One of the biggest states. They got one of the biggest spikes going on right now. Yeah. Regardless,
yeah, like
they in
16,000.
Yeah, they in the bubble. I understand, but you still in that environment. You still in that state, and that state is increasing. It's crazy.
And how many Instagram models come out of Florida?
You wrong for that, Ed. You wrong for that. So yeah,
I think I might change my status. They might not finish the season.
So Major League Baseball can't even get testing done, and the players were supposed to be getting tested every 2 days, every 3 minimum. They get tested, don't get tested results back for several days, and then they don't get tested at all. So it's just a mess. Moving on, MLS. They had the MLS is Back tournament down in Florida in Disney, Wild World of Sports. They had to send a second team home. You had Nashville join FC Dallas, being pushed out of the tournament because multiple players have tested positive. Then you add on to that, our local team, DC United, had their initial game postponed twice because players supposedly tested positive or there was concern, but then they find out that those tests weren't good. So, I mean, it's just a mess. It's just a mess. And then last but not least, because you know we always give respect to the ladies out there, the WNBA, what those players had to go through, they have their bubble at the IMG Academy, which is in Bradenton, Florida. And players had to post on social media to conditions of some of the rooms that they've got world-class athletes staying in. And they had multiple villas and other options, but they put some of these world-class athletes in dorm-style rooms with laundry centers that were filthy dirty, with mouse and rat traps in visible plain sight. Come on now. Come on now. Shame on you.
No respect.
And you know, the whole WNBA, it's such a tragedy as far as how they're treating these athletes. And if you want to even go into like our local star on the Mystics, Della Dawn, Della Dawn, she's been denied an exemption as far as being able to opt out because of she has an ongoing issue with Lyme disease. Her physician is basically saying she's at risk, but the league's physicians are saying you're not at risk. Now, if any star of her comparable in the NBA had this same issue, it wouldn't even be an issue.
You're right.
And you can't get more bigger than Delle Donne as far as basketball is concerned. Let's remove gender. As
Turn
far
MVP.
As right. Champion.
Reigning champion. Right.
Right. And it's just tragedy. And another tragedy of this whole situation is a lot of these WNBA teams are sort of kind of connected to the NBA.
Exactly.
So where's they're spending 150 million, or I don't know what the latest number is as far as testing these NBA players. You know they're not staying in no 3-star or 2-star hotel. You mean, come on, man, you can't treat the women just like you treat the men. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's sad.
The WNBA needs to either extremely value their women or get rid of the league as a whole. You've been short to paying them money. You've always disrespected them in one way or another. They get down to these facilities, and if we're talking about mouse, rat droppings, you didn't even check the space out. You didn't clean it out. It wasn't even worth your time. So if you don't feel the need to reinvest into your company to make it better, or make the employees that make you some type of money because you keep running it, you keep having a league every summer. If you're not going to do right by them, then just cancel the league and allow these young ladies to find employment elsewhere, because it's disrespectful. It's extremely disrespectful.
Totally agree.
I agree. And then we wonder why our greatest female basketball players have been going overseas for decades, earning a living. And if they can pay them 6 figures or more over
money
in Europe, in China, in different places, and invest in these women, why doesn't the WNBA, backed by the NBA, make the investment? Because they make the investment, the league will grow, the ad revenue will grow, and it'll pay for itself. But let me get off that soapbox. Last but not least, do y'all know that the NFL and the NFL Players Association haven't agreed on the final protocols to play football yet?
Yeah.
They holding out. They holding out.
Gangsters.
These dudes supposed to report in like 2 weeks, and you didn't have the protocols yet.
But we know what the NFL is all about, because if we just go back to when this pandemic first started up, and I was like, the NFL basically should be leading the way, because none of their season was interrupted. They had just completed their season when all heck broke loose, so to speak. And they had all this time to really examine what the do's and don'ts, or whether or not they should even have a season. And it seems like they've completely dropped the ball, starting with back in April when Goodell came out and said, "You better not speak against us." So he sent that warning out right away, as far as the teams is concerned, saying that any communication about this pandemic will come through me or my office. So I'm not surprised that they haven't reached any safety protocols or come to an agreement with the union. I'm not surprised at all.
Not at all.
The NFL is the bully in the room, and they always have been. Their plan was to let every other sport get out there, make their plans, fail at their plans, put together another plan, and then what they're going to do is come in and say, "Oh, we had the best plan all along." Whether it works or not, who knows? But their whole premise as the NFL, the big dog in the room, was just to let everybody do what they needed to do, and then they're going to come in at the last minute with their own plan. It was always in the works. Just like you said, Roger Goodell stood up there and pretty much just beat his chest and said, "We're going to wait and see," and that's what they're doing.
I feel you. Speaking about the NFL, let's go to the Washington football team. Monday, yesterday, we had how can I put this?
A big announcement.
Lackluster, full of nothing, major announcement that the Washington football team will retire the name and logo that they've used for the past 83 years.
It's been retired.
Now, everybody was expecting for this big announcement and what the new name was going to be, and Dan Snyder puts this garbage out.
Right.
Or Washington racial slur letterhead.
Yeah.
From an email from the Washington racial slurs.
Right. And the website is still theracialslur.com. Can't make it up.
Hey, can I jump in here? Can I jump in here for a minute? And I'm a stand back. I'm a back off, because you guys are lifelong racial slur team fans, whatever. but I read that press release a total of maybe 6 or 7 times. It's only 5 sentences. If you read it, it's only 5 sentences.
Right.
And the thing
what are you trying to get out of it, Ed?
Because I wanted to. Because if I talk about something, I want to know what he was actually saying. And the thing the thing that struck me is he never gave the reason for the change in the name. Never. If you look at it's only 5 sentences. It takes 20 seconds. So he didn't say anything about the reason. No admission of any wrongdoing, and all he said was we were retiring the name and logo. That's it. He did not mention one time. He did not say we were in the wrong. This is the equivalent of insert racial bad term. He didn't say anything about nobody. No mention of that. Basically, we're just retiring it. That's it. And it was sad. And he did say, if you read it, he acknowledged his sponsors first. His fans, technically his season ticket holders, and then the community, which is the people that don't pay but support the team.
Last money,
But it was sad that he did not mention Native Americans anywhere in that statement, and that's all I have. I'm not going to say anything else. I'm not.
And he wasn't going to.
Right.
He wasn't going to.
He's the same individual that told you almost a year and a half. 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
7 years ago.
He wasn't going to change the name. So he don't want to admit that, because
never
in his eyes, he was never going to change that name. But because of what's going on in society, his arms are twisted. And again, That's because of the money. You think about it.
Right.
When you got sponsors saying they're gonna pull the money because they don't want you to have that racial name on your logo, what can you do? Money talks.
So basically, Ed, he was letting us all know that I only did it because of my sponsorship. That's why he put them first. He let you know that I did this against my will. But since I want to continue owning this team and making all this money, then I'm going to change it, against my final thoughts.
But as lifelong fans, and you guys have supported this team for decades. I mean, how does that make you guys feel? I mean, do you say, okay, well, he's just the owner, it doesn't make a difference. We're supporting the team, not him. But how does that make you guys, like, does it elicit any feelings within you?
Yeah, it elicits big time feelings with me. Go ahead, Johnny. Go ahead.
I never expected much out of him anyway. He always has operated with arrogance. My love was for the players on the team. Now, it happened to have a racial slur at the time. I didn't really respect it then, but being ignorant at times, I would support it. But since we are at this moment, why are we expecting this man to all of a sudden act like he has all this love in his heart and he was moved emotionally? His hand was forced. He did not want to change the name. If they wasn't messing with his pockets, or if he wasn't getting as much attention, because this has got national, almost international attention, he wouldn't be moving. I'm not expecting an apology. As long as you just change the name and do right by individuals, I'm cool with that. For him to come out with a lie and be like, well, I'm so sorry, guys, the way I've done Native Americans, this, that, and the third. Don't sell me the crap. Give me the truth. Change the name. Right. Make sure the jerseys are fly. Put some better food in the stadiums.
You preaching. You preaching.
I don't need anything else. Don't give me your fake love. Don't give me I'm gonna hit you with the Matumbo.
So you not buying the backstory that Snyder had been in talks with the NFL for like 2 or 3 weeks prior to any of this break-in about possibly changing the name?
Nope. No. I believe Roger Goodell made a phone call. He let him know you about to change it. Then them sponsors and all those shareholders gave him a call next and said, you about to change it. And then the rest of the owners called him and said, you messed this up, you will sell the team and then we'll change it. So, yeah, it ain't take no 2 weeks. It took 3 days at the most.
Snyder didn't feel limited by having the Redskins be a part of its representation like NASCAR felt limited by the Confederate flag being a part of its reputation. He was still making his money, even though his team didn't go to the final. We never made it to the playoffs consistently. But yet, as far as the top 10 to 12 teams go, they always were making good money. He could care less. Snyder was going all the way to the bank. I snatched up a couple of radio stations. I'm about to invest into a couple of Chipotles. I'm good. I'm not worried about it at
all. Real quick, to address Carolyn's point, right? Yeah. He wrote that check years ago, like 2012, 2013. But since then, after he paid them off, he hadn't paid them natives a dime of money going forward after that. And that's part of one of the reasons why they amped up their push to get the name changed, because they lost in court. But now when he stopped flowing that money to them, they say, you can't hush us up no more. So that's why we back to this point today.
Hey, can I ask one more question? Can I put one more question out in the universe? So because Dan Snyder, I think, has owned this team for 21 years, since 99, I believe. And they haven't won and I don't think the franchise has won a championship since what, 91? No, I'm not rubbing it in. I'm setting the background. I'm laying the groundwork for this question. So if that's the case, what is he holding on to? Why is the name so vital to him? What is he holding on to if within the last 2 decades that he's owned this team, nothing positive has necessarily come out of it? So why is he
Johnny?
So why is he so attached to this name when it's clearly offensive to millions of individuals?
One, it was money, and two is because he grew up as a diehard fan. So to him, it was near and dear to his heart, and he just couldn't stand to part with it.
And third, you weren't going to tell a billionaire what he was going to do with his money and the team that he bought with his money.
Exactly.
They just did.
Okay.
Right. He's
So-
hot. He's upset. If you was ever getting a candid conversation with him, you'd be amazed what type of things that fly out of his mouth right now.
Mm.
But let's talk about the funny issue about this whole situation. Have y'all gentlemen ever heard of Martin McCauley?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Yep.
For the
Today,
people out
yeah.
there who haven't heard of Martin McCauley is a Northern Virginia resident.
Oh.
Back when he heard in 2013, when Dan Snyder had his interview and he said, "You can print it in all caps, I'll never change the name," he decided to start trademarking possible nicknames for the Redskins. And he's been doing it since 2014. So now that the Redskins are ready to change the name, Mr. McCauley owns the trademarks or has applied for trademarks to the Americans, the Bravehearts, the Federals, the Forces, the Founders, the Gladiators, the Tailed Hawks, the Renegades, the Sharks, the Veterans, the Tribe, Red Tails, which has been one of the ones kicked about, the Monuments, the Veterans, the Red-Tailed Hawks, and the other big one that's out there, Red Wolves, is already trademarked by Arkansas State University and is in litigation against another soccer team from Chattanooga. So all of the possible names that we've heard out there in the universe
Swooped up.
aren't available. Now, supposedly Mr. McCauley says that he just did it as a concerned fan and wanted the name changed and wanted to make sure that no one else took these names when the team was ready to change the name. So now they've got to go deal with this guy to get the trademarks to these names.
Smart
Brilliant.
man. Smart man.
Yeah, he a visionary, man. He's
Smart
a
man.
visionary.
He can ready to get paid.
Yep.
How much
Wish I
is it
thought
worth?
of that.
How much is it worth you to get one of these trademarks that I already own to get you out the hot water and be able to change your name? Because the goal is they want to have the name change announced before the players report at the end of this month.
Give me $5 million and season tickets.
No, you don't need season tickets.
See,
Man,
man,
I'm about to steal
Yeah.
it.
My bad.
They're gonna have Pittsburgh
Yeah.
gonna be coming out.
I apologize.
Talking
I
about those black
apologize.
and gold.
That's funny.
I don't know the
I say
I
$5 million.
would have to do research as far as what the name is actual worth. And then you start high and meet somewhere in the middle, and if he owns so many names, I mean, he's going to have to eventually run into one of them. Does he have the Generals? Did they mention anything about the Generals?
We don't want
did-
that anyway.
They did
Oh,
not
okay.
mention the
Yeah.
Generals. Somebody brought up Warriors.
like some
Warriors
gold
is
trap,
already
that's
trademarked by a couple other different organizations, so they're gonna have a hard time with getting the Warriors because Dan wants the full trademark rights for logos and things of that sort. So he's gonna have an issue.
Thank you, sir.
You ain't right, Sense. You ain't right, Sense. That's funny.
Man, look, I'm neutral.
Yeah, right.
You're lying.
So
Okay.
Johnny says 5 million. What you say, J3?
I really can't even answer that, bro, because that's too much money he can actually acquire. So I'm gonna leave it alone.
Okay. You got any ideas, Professor? How much you think it's gonna take him to pay this guy off to get one of these nicknames?
yeah, he probably gonna have to write him a check for a cool $10 million.
I'm scared to get 10 million. I don't want that reported. That's why I said 5.
Oh my!
Leave me alone. Don't be blowing me up.
You funny, son. You funny, son.
If they find out you got 10, 15 million, you know how many family members you never met going
Uh-huh.
Johnny, you crazy, man.
Hey, Johnny, I need to borrow $1, bro.
Red tails. Like, brother, get off my front.
Johnny, I need to borrow $1, and I know you got it.
Well, if it's anywhere in the high 6s to 7 figures, that'd be a heck of an investment because he's only invested. He's estimating about $25,000 over the years. So that's a hell of a return on your money.
Yeah, better hope he gets elected.
Right.
Last but not least, Fight Island. My man Dana White pulled it off again.
I keep telling y'all, man.
Man, hey, you talking about G moves? I mean, for any of y'all out there that didn't see it, Fight Island was actually a 10 square mile radius on Yas Island, which is in Abu Dhabi, which is one of those man-made islands that they built out in Abu Dhabi. They had multiple hotels, multiple restaurants, an actual Formula One race car track runs through this little island. I mean, it is unbelievable. And Dana White got them to build him a brand new arena for his fights. So they didn't have to put any stands in it and pulled off UFC 251, the first of 4 fights on Fight Island that they'll have within the next 15 days.
Dana White doing it.
I mean, of everybody in sports who's leading the sports organization, he doing it big.
And it may be what's necessary in order to keep the safety of your league. It may be what's needed to be done. Orlando is not really working, but you got a lot of outside people coming in and out. With the island, you kind of separate everything. You really don't know where you are. If I'm in Orlando, I can hop in the car or sneak out and I can get it back. My phone still works. I'm good. I'm Uber and meet me by that tree. I'm good.
By the tree.
It's a little bit different. So
you ain't gonna go too far in Abu Dhabi with 120-degree heat.
Shit.
But don't you think that Dana White has a built-in advantage over probably any other sports league out there? In addition to it being an individual sport, even though it's a contact sport, it's an individual sport, man on man, so to speak.
Right.
But he's basically the czar of the UFC. I'm sure he has people he answers to. We found that out earlier this year. But for the most part, he can control pretty much everything involved in his show. And so I think there's a built-in advantage to that, and he's taking advantage of it. Big Reg, you and Professor J have been saying all along that he's a master G, and he's definitely a G. But he also has an advantage that no other sports league can match. So for him to have success, even though he is going outside the box, he's thinking outside the box as far as Fight Island. Period. I just think that he has built-in advantages that other leagues can't compete with.
That's a good point.
You say individual sports. Let's look at PBC, Top Rank. Those are boxing leagues or boxing organizations that have enough fighters under their umbrella that they could do something like this too. They just aren't willing to spend the capital to do it, because he says, I'm spending a lot of money to put these fights on, but I'm spending a lot of money to make money and to continue to build my organization so that by the time this is all done and over, it's going to be a monster worldwide.
And Dana White is in a position where he can go up to Mayweather Promotions like, hey, your next fight, if Las Vegas is not playing ball with you, if whoever is not trying to open up their facility to you, you want to come on out to Fight Island.
Wow. Good
It's a
point.
great way.
Good
Yeah,
point.
it's a great opportunity to network and make some other money, especially for
I ain't
individuals
even
who
think
just need a
about that.
rubber mat in a cage. Let's go.
Yeah, but boxing, in addition to what you mentioned, Big Reg, and what you're saying, Johnny, is that you also have the unseen forces behind boxing that has to sign off on certain things. I'm not gonna
Sanctioning
mention.
bodies.
I'm not even talking about them. I'm not getting involved because I don't want nobody coming knocking on my door or putting a bomb putting a bomb on my car. My car is already cheap. But but you do have those that you have to answer to that you never hear of in boxing. And maybe UFC is like that, but to this point, I don't think so. But again, I just think that UFC is in a unique position that none of these other leagues have to deal with. The only other league I think may be able to be in this position, but it's not really real, is the WWE. Other than that, yeah, Dana White, as far as a legitimate sports league, no one can compare to him as far as what he has or what red tape or no red tape he has to deal with. The only one he has to answer to is his sponsors. That's it.
I completely agree. You're right.
Yep.
You are right.
So talking about the actual fights, the big fight on the card was Kamaru Usman fighting game bred Mr. Jorge Masvidal for the I believe it was the welterweight title. Masvidal took the fight on 6 days' notice, had to drop 22 pounds in 6 days to make weight. And Kamaru Usman, who is, besides the champion, former All-American wrestler, used his wrestling skills, grabbed him, held him, pushed him up against the fence, threw him down on the ground, stomped on his feet, and dominated for 5 rounds. So everybody was looking forward to this big showdown, and Usman shut it all down. The Nigerian Nightmare, as he's called, shut everything down.
He sure did.
In the co-main event, Alexander Volkanovski got a controversial decision win over my man Max Holloway. It was a split decision win, 2-1. I couldn't see it. Max Holloway dominated the first 2 rounds, and on 2 other cards, they say he didn't win any of the last 3, and both of those rounds are going back and forth. So Holloway got the shaft. Even Dana White at the end of the fight said Holloway won that fight and got robbed, but it's nothing he can do about the judges.
And that's where and that's where Dana White has to try to get more control or clean the judging of these UFC fights up. We talked about this the other day, Big Reg.
Yeah.
When you schooled me, because I wasn't aware that he didn't control that aspect of the UFC fight game, but he has to clean that up, because one of the things that boxing suffers from is these decisions, these controversial decisions. But now it's been a much longer time period than UFC, obviously. But that's one of the things that that turned a lot of people off to regular boxing, is that these decisions didn't match what their people's eyes were seeing. And so UFC has to clean this up. And Dana White's smart. That's one thing he is. He's smart. He knows there's some work to be done in that area, because clearly if the boss is saying, and Dana White never holds his tongue, but if he's saying that there was a problem with the judging, clearly, and you're saying, and you've been a big time UFC fan for years, if you're saying this, then I'm sure other people are saying, hey, wait a minute, this is starting to turn into boxing. And he doesn't want that, because UFC is way more at this point. They have a leg up on boxing right now, and a lot of it is because of the judging.
Yep.
I agree. Dana tells all the fighters all the time, don't leave it in the judge's hands. If you want to be sure, finish your opponent, one way or the other.
That's real.
In the third title fight, so there were 3 title fights on Fight Island. Peter Yan stopped MMA legend Jose Aldo late in the 5th round by punches. He basically, after the first round, he beat Jose Aldo up for another 3 rounds, and they probably should have stopped the fight in the 4th round. He just dominated. And when I mean a legend, whenever he retires, 4 years later, Aldo will be going into the UFC Hall of Fame. That man ran ramp shot over the UFC for 7 years until Conor McGregor knocked him out. And ever since then, he ain't been the same.
That'll do it.
But after that beating he needs to retire now. Because I don't see how. First of all, it should have been stopped, like you said, in the 4th. But I don't see how he can recover from something like that. I mean, that was brutal. That was almost hard to watch.
Yeah. And that's something Dana can have a little more control over, because the refs should have stopped that earlier. And Dana does, while he doesn't select the refs that go on his shows generally go from state to state, country to country with the UFC. So he can let them know, please don't let anybody get beat up so bad that they get hurt. Because a legend like Aldo isn't going to tap out and quit. So you got to protect him from himself. And last but not least, Thug Rose Namajunas avenged her title defense loss from last year in a split decision victory over Jessica Andrade. And fellas, this was a fight. At the end of the fight, Rose had a big old fat black eye. Her nose was broken. If y'all think the men rumble in the UFC, the women go hard all the time.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So for you folks out there who have never seen a UFC fight, if I could give you a small piece of advice, the next one that comes up, give it about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Not every fight is going to be good, but I think if you watch a whole card, you will see 1 or 2 good fights. And if you do that a couple of times, you get hooked. They got me like 4 or 5 years ago, and I've been in 100% ever since. All right, fellas, it's getting late in the hour. Let's tell the folks some other things that have caught our eye, and then we'll get out of here with our final post. Right now on ESPN, the $1 million winner-take-all TBT, the basketball tournament, final game is being played. Sideline for Cancer's up 1 point in the 3rd quarter. For you people, it's Jonah for Sports. That's been live 5-on-5 basketball that's been on ESPN for the past 2 weeks. I'd also like to put out a big congrats to Kara Lawson, Virginia native, former All-American from Tennessee,
All right.
WNBA champion, All-Star, Olympic champion, NBA TV analyst, Washington Wizards TV analyst, Boston Celtics assistant coach. On Saturday, got hired to be the next head coach of Duke's female basketball team, becoming the first African-American coach to be a head coach at Duke.
Yay.
Yeah, even though it's Duke. Yeah.
Right. Big up. Big up.
That's still big news. That's still
No
big
doubt.
news.
Yes, sir.
And last but not least, for me, tomorrow is deadline day. So we will see who gets paid and who has to play under the franchise tag. Hopefully I ain't take all of y'all's. Anybody got anything that caught their eye during the week?
Yeah, for me, real quick, I want to give a big ups to Tiger Woods for saying he's gonna go ahead and sit out the rest of the tournaments because of COVID. Again, I don't think he's hurting for money, but he's thinking about his health, and to me, that's more important.
Good job, Tiger.
Cool. Yeah, for me, I'm gonna go ahead and chime in with that Madden 21, that rating. Shout out to Lamar Jackson with an overall rating of 94, only behind Pat Mahomes, which is a 99, and Russell Wilson, which is a 97. But Jackson is the fastest quarterback in the league at a rating of 96. So congratulations to him for stepping it up and really showing what he can do for Charm City.
Nice.
And he's the cover boy for Madden
he's the
21,
cover.
correct?
Yeah,
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Got to get that.
That's
Now
the
the thing
Madden
that
curse.
wasn't sports related, but I guess it is. It's COVID-19 related. So a couple of days ago, I'm coming home Saturday, and I noticed there has to be at least 120 cars at the Broadwater Estates. A big old party, big old funky party, and these people were jamming at 2, 3 in the morning with their big fun. So I'm not expecting much out of these leagues because you can't expect much out of these people.
Brother
Real talk.
Johnny, brother Johnny.
Real talk.
Wow.
That's it for me.
But I'm gonna piggyback off of that because they actually had another party the next day. Just so you know.
I heard you was cooking the fish, so I you brought the lemon pepper.
Oh, shoot.
Would you say that's the rumor that was up? You sticking with it, huh? On that note, that is a perfect segue for our final post of the evening. Why don't you kick it off for us, Professor?
Yeah, well, as you guys know, I'm a youth pastor, youth leader, and educator, and I'm really concerned about what's being talked about as far as putting our kids back in harm's way in little less than a month. So I'm really praying and hoping that, our children are safe, that they don't be put in these places as guinea pigs to try to test out what the coronavirus would do next. So just keep these officials and then leaders in your prayers because we actually need to do the right thing. And parents, if you feel like it's not safe, make other arrangements for your children and keep them home. That's all I got.
Absolutely. Perfectly said. J3, what you got for us?
Just quiet, man. I just hope and pray that everyone thinks smartly and stay inside and wear your mask if you do go out and think smartly. That's it.
Got you. All right, Johnny, what you got to wrap us up with final posts?
Stay safe, everybody. Protect yourselves. If you are out here exercising, make sure you're not right behind someone's downwind. Give them a bit of space. Don't want to be right on. So let's protect ourselves at all costs. I've seen people following each other like they married. Like, no, you can't. So protect yourself at all times. Love you all. Hope to see you all next Tuesday.
Amen.
All right. Ed?
Yeah, so it's been proven. This is a fact. This is not my opinion. The Black and the Latino communities have been inadvertently affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And that's for various reasons, health resources, etc. But we as a community, collective community, just because they opening certain things up, just because we're being affected by certain circumstances doesn't mean that we have to assist and help that number rise. Let's be safe about everything as far as keeping each other, looking out for each other as far as this pandemic, and maybe we'll get through it and meet each other on the other side. Also, finally, I want to send a shout out to my cousin Todd, my cousin RD, and my sister Melissa. Thanks for the support.
Yay. Appreciate
it. Appreciate all the support.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
My final post goes out to Professor J, his family, and all the other people out there who have fortunately lost loved ones due to this situation. Our thoughts, hearts, and prayers go out to you, partner, and to everybody else. It's especially tough these days. While I didn't lose someone due to COVID, my grandmother passed in May, and not being able to have a funeral or a limited funeral, not being able to go visit someone in the hospital in their last days is really tough on families. So please keep anybody that you know that's lost somebody due to this disease, keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Reach out to them, touch them, let them know you're thinking about them, because this is not the way we're used to dealing with things. All right, folks, we'd like to thank you all for tuning in and listening. We appreciate your time and the opportunity for all of us to give you our opinions and positions on sports. We're here every Tuesday, 7 p.m. live shows. Please tune in each week. But you can also download previous shows either through our Facebook or through our YouTube channel. If you go to either one, please like and subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you could also tell your friends, family members, and social media contacts about the show if you enjoy it, we greatly appreciate it. We want you to be safe, be happy, look out for each other, have love for one another.
Absolutely.
This has been the Positional Sports Talk Show. We appreciate you. Peace.
Peace, love.
God bless you.
Oh.
Freedom.